All right, so if you're like a lot of marketers right now, or business owners, or founders, or entrepreneurs, or copywriters, media buyers, etc., whatever, then you probably have some beef with AI. and it's pretty easy to understand why, because AI promised a lot. They told us that it was going to make everything faster, easier, better, more predictable, automate systems, that you were just going to be able to have, a team of agents that would handle all your media buying, your copywriting, your analytics, everything, and it would just be this system that would feed itself. But what we've actually been experiencing is that AI kind of produces a lot of slop, a lot of crappy images, a lot of crappy content, a lot of words that don't make sense, that don't capture the brand voice. And a lot of marketers are just going back to writing things by hand. They use Claude or they use ChatGPT for ideas, but then they go and they actually write the draft themselves. Or maybe they get a first draft with Claude or with ChatGPT and they publish it, and then, crickets. Nothing's happening. It's not converting. And then it's back to the drawing board. Like, why? Why didn't this thing work? It has all the knowledge of humanity ever. It's read the internet like a dozen thousand times. Why can't it write a decent freaking ad? So everyone's just searching for this breakthrough moment, something that will cut through the noise. And meanwhile, all these big influencers are out there. Hormozy's saying you got to put out 1,000 pieces of content every single week, or else you're going to become irrelevant. And you have to, hustle harder and put more stuff out and test more angles. And so everyone's just leaning into volume, just putting out more and more and more and more and more, without ever actually like stopping, taking a step back, and thinking about, well, wait, why isn't this working in the first place? And the reason why it's not working, we're going to get to that in a minute, but I just want to know, tell me in the comments below if that you've experienced this, if you've experienced something like that, if you've been frustrated by the way that AI writes, specifically for persuasive material. Stuff that is meant to move people, stuff that is meant to be a landing page or an ad or a video script, whatever. Just tell me what sucks about it right now, because I want to know. I want to know from you, not just from my own research. Because I'm building something that I think is going to fix a lot of those problems for you, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works later on in this video and talk about my process of creation and how I did it. So I just want to bang, get through some of the biggest complaints that people have. So the first thing is, everyone says AI sounds the same as everyone else, right? So that's problem number one right there. And it's true. It's, if you go to a default generic generalized AI LLM, you're going to get stuff that sounds polished, that sounds generic, bland, obvious, and it's fine, but it's predictable and it's sterile. And predictable, as we're going to talk about in a minute, is the exact opposite of what you want. And to understand why this actually happens, then you need to know about how AI works on the back end. So here's what AI does. If you're writing an ad and you say, I want to write an ad, and let's say you're a dentist, right? And you ask the AI agent, we'll put this over here, to write an ad for you. Agent, right? And what this agent is going to do is it's going to go and it is going to look at this data set right here, which is ads for dentists, right? Because that's what you asked it for. So it wants to give you what you're looking for. And the problem with ads for dentists is that it's not coming up with any fresh ideas, because there's this massive other data set that is available, which is every other ad ever written, right? For different industries, for different things, for different, for a lawn care company, for financial newsletter, whatever. And it basically just ignores this whole thing. And it just focuses on this because it thinks this is what's important. This is what the person wants. And that's why it ends up sounding the same as everyone else, because it's looking for something. It's like an auto predict, it's trying to predict the most predictable next word. So when you point it in a direction, you say, I'm a dentist, then it's going to look for other ads from dentists. And maybe there's some more creative ads from dentists that it'll find. But it's not going to look at, a financial newsletter from 1940 and find the specific headline and the specific offer framing and some new idea that it's going to apply to your market, to your specific dental practice that's aligned with your actual voice and values and brand that you're trying to project in the world. So that's what's happening, that's creating everything that's sounding the same. And it's getting worse, because what's happening is there's this loop that's going on where AI writes ads for dentists. It brings it back to the dentist. The dentist isn't a marketer. He doesn't know any better, so he runs the ad. And then his ad contributes to the data set of ads for dentists, which then creates this loop where things just get more and more homogenized, more and more the same. They just sound more and more like each other, because it's just this, self-fulfilling Ouroboros loop that's forever eating its own tail. And this is the opposite of how the best human copywriters work. When the best human copywriters go to work, they don't look at what is other ads for dentists. They look at what ideas are here that we want to express, that we want to get across, right? And so they don't look at, they're not looking in the same place at all. They're looking at swipe files, and they're looking at things that are outside of the typical ads for dentists. They're looking at this stuff. And then they're merging it, they're coming up with these ways, these ideas to like tie in the industry standards of what you expect for dentists with a new ad, with something that is drawn from a fresh source. And this is what enables unpredictable ideas to emerge. And we're going to come back to that. Unpredictability is the goal, is the key here. Unpredictability is the thing that allows someone's brain to update their model of the world so that they can make new decisions based off of the persuasive material presented to them. We're going to go into that in a minute, so just stick around, all right? The next biggest thing that people experience with AI, the biggest complaint that I've heard, that I've seen, is that it doesn't know me. It doesn't know my business. Doesn't know me, right? And the reason for this is because AI is just looking at what it is that you are giving it. So here's the data set of information that you give it. And so when you ask it to write an ad, then it's going to do this. It's going to look at, okay, well, who are you? You, we'll put right here, right? And then it's going to look at the data set of what you've given it. And then it's also going to look at other things, we're going back to the dentist thing here, right? It's going to look at the other ads for the dentists. So it's merging those two things. But how the heck does it know what's important in this data set of what you've given it? If you've given it your brand financials, if you've given it your homepage for your website, if you've given it the brand voice that you thought was so great, then maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But does it know what competitors are saying? Does it know what is so played out in your market that the instant people see it, they're going to scroll past it and roll their eyes and just move on? Does it know what your buyer is thinking about at, when they're sitting at dinner with their spouse? Does it know what their kids are saying to them? Does it actually go into forums and read real complaints from your ideal client and actually find specific quotes so that it can speak to them in the language of their own world? Again, this is something that copywriters do that people don't do. And so this is why it ends up not sounding like you, because it's, again, trying to pattern match to everything that's ever been written for other dentists. And then the data set that you gave it, which might be incomplete, it might not be structured properly. If you give it a lot of material, maybe you're like, okay, yeah, well, I'll just give it everything, and it's like, you paste in all the emails you've written for the last 5 years and every ad you've ever ran. And then there's this massive amount of context that's right there, right? So this is the context you give it in this data set. And it doesn't know what's important in there. It doesn't know. It's like, here's the context, right? But the context, the maximum size, even like Opus 4.8, Anthropic's latest model right now, the context window is only 1 million tokens. So if you give it, 10,000 words and then you ask it to do all this research too, then it's going to pull out this little bit of the data set. It's going to pull out this, and it's going to be like, all right, there we go. We got it. This is what you're about. And it's missing, all these other shapes that are going on, all these other things that are happening in here that it didn't know was actually really important. It didn't know that this right here was actually the key little phrase or the key little idea in an ad that you ran a year ago that drove a bunch of sales. It's going to think, oh no, this is far bigger and more important because I see this more often. But this one here is actually responsible for conversions. And so it doesn't know how to connect those data back and forth. And this problem is architectural, and you have to build a system that can actually interpret past results to see which specific things actually drove conversions in order to feed the LLM with the data set that actually matters. Making sense here? So the next biggest problem that people complain about is that, AI is replacing thinking, okay? That instead of spending time strategizing, instead of spending time coming up with ideas, that people are just typing in prompts, just prompt after prompt after prompt, fresh chat after fresh chat after fresh chat, constantly trying to get outside of the AI box. And this one is a little trickier to solve because, yeah, it is really easy for AI to replace thinking. Like if this is thinking right here, and you want to, you're up here, let's say, and this is how much you think you can think, right? Thinking humanly. Yeah. And this one, let's name this thinking artificially. Artificially, right? And so you're here. This is you. I'm just going to give you a little smiley face. I'm going to make you a little person. Happy you. Cool. So there you are. And you're thinking humanly, right? And then you're like, actually, you know what? It's much easier to think artificially. And so you just pass it off to the AI. Now, the problem with this is that the AI is going to do a few things here. One, it's going to jump. Let's do a little text box for this, actually. And one, it's going to jump to creation. It's going to want to just immediately, you say, I have an idea for an ad. It's not going to stress test the idea. It's not going to push back too much. It'll do a little bit. But most of the time, it's just going to jump to an ad, the creation, and write a draft. Right? The next thing that it's not going to do is spend enough time coming up with ideas, ideation. And ideation is where, if you want to create winning marketing messages, then ideation is where you should spend at least half your time, if not 60-75% of your time, because a good idea executed poorly will beat a bad idea executed well every time. People will forgive, small mistakes in your execution. Maybe your landing page isn't perfect. Maybe there's a grammatical error. Maybe you format it poorly. But if the essence is actually good, if it's actually there, then it's going to land. It's going to resonate. People can feel that when there's actually true, genuine human thought put in. But the problem is most people, they see these machines that go so fast that, that have this massive amount of information available, and they just outsource their thinking to that, and the system itself isn't going to push back. It's not going to put pressure back on them to think and come up with good ideas. A lot of the times the machine isn't even actually going to think it isn't even going to know necessarily what a good idea is, which brings us to the next biggest problem with AI, which is that AI is designed to be a mirror. right? You know, there's all these articles going around about how AI is sycophantic and how it just reflects back to you exactly what you want to hear. So if you come to it with an idea, it's going to be like, okay, let me gently push back on this one little part of it, because but overall the idea is really good, you know, like you're thinking well. Um and maybe it is good, maybe it's not. But the best ideas are going to come from, again, going back to this, they're going to come from somewhere unexpected. It's going to come from somewhere that is not where all of the other marketing messages and materials came from. So to that, there may actually even be an issue where AI will tell you that good ideas are bad because it doesn't look like what it expects. And it tells you that bad ideas are good because it looks like what it expects. Again, coming back to this predictability thing. Predictability is huge here. And when I talk about the brain, you're going to understand exactly why predictability is the enemy and the absolute worst thing. To a degree, you have to be predictable enough to be recognizable and trustworthy, but you have to be unpredictable enough to carry what we call signatures of intent. I'm going to explain what that means, and we're going to get into that. And so what's happening here is that everyone has access to these same tools, right? And they're doing this same thing over and over again. They're doing all these issues that we just discussed, that we just demonstrated here, of they're, you know, only grabbing at whatever context you give it. They're looking at other ads for the industry. And then we need to get into the model of how AI actually works itself. And so the way that AI is tuned over time is it looks at this giant information set of, you know, everything ever created, and it breaks it down into tokens. And then those tokens are structured as outputs. And this is what they do in the testing. So it's a structured output. And I just had a big conversation with a guy who works at Google about this very recently. And he works in the AI department at Google. And he was telling me about how they're optimizing Google Gemini AI summaries for search right now. And this is basically what he confirmed, is they pick a random data set of people. And this is the random data set. Random homies. Okay, so these random homies, and then these random homies, they give them the output. And they say, essentially, do you like this? Do you like this? Is this good? And the person then gives it a score. You know, score a circle. And let's say 5 out of 10, right? And then that is fed back into the architecture, which produces the next structured output. So you can see the problem here. If you're giving it to a bunch of random homies who are not specialists, who are not experts, who don't know, you know, a hook from a guarantee, and have no idea why a promise headline should be used over a fear headline, they're not going to know. And it's just going to trend again towards sameness. It's going to trim off the edges and just trend merging towards this, you know, incomprehensible blob of generic sterile sameness. And again, this is not something you can fix with a prompt chain. You can't prompt it and say, come up with a better idea. Come up with a new idea. Do something different here. It needs to be architectural. It needs to be actually fixed at the very source of where the model is getting its data from. Where it's getting its data from, what it thinks is important, and why. And the model has to have a deep understanding of that in order for it to actually function effectively as a new idea generation tool that's grounded in actual marketing principles, stretching back, and then creating content that is actually, you know, enjoyable, digestible, effective, persuasive, not just recycled crap. And the thing about all of this is it leads towards the biggest complaint that people have, which is this. Feeling. Bloop. Wow. Feeling. Feeling. And this is what it all comes down to is, when people say that AI content is soulless or it lacks voice or something just feels off. This is what they're talking about, is this feeling. And this is the transition where we're going to switch over to talking about how the human brain works, because in order to understand this, why this feeling is so important, and why the marketers are saying that consumers can feel it. They can feel something's off. Even if they can't name exactly what it is, they can feel it. There's all these little AI tells, AI smells, the overuse of M dashes, it's not this, it's not that, it's actually this. And here's the brutal truth. Or the, parallelism, all of these AI tells, all these things that it actually absorbed from looking at human writing and saw great human writers did this, great marketers did this, and so I should do it too. But then it overuses those techniques to the point that people can see it. And what I've personally noticed is people love AI when it's talking to them. Everyone thinks that ChatGPT and Claude are so brilliant. If you go to it and you talk about your emotional issues and you talk about how you want to redo your porch or you bring it a business problem, it's genius, right? But then, and I've noticed myself doing this too, when someone posts something on Facebook and it kind of has that AI smell to it, you like zoom in on it and you dissect the photo, like, ooh, this photo is definitely AI generated. Oh, this writing kind of feels like AI. I'm going to comment and say, obviously AI generated. Oh my God, I can't believe you're trying to use it. So people love AI when it's talking to them, but they, when someone uses it to try to persuade someone else or try to put a message out there, then there's this weird thing of like AI for me, but not for thee. It's like, it's okay to use it, but it's not okay to use it to put something out in the world. Right. So that's just an interesting thing that I've noticed. And it leads into this. It leads into this how the brain works, okay? So here's the brain. And here's what the brain is trying to do. The brain is right here in this moment. And here's all the things that happened in the past, right? And all of these things that happened in the past, it's trying to use those to predict what's going to happen in the future. If I do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, this is going to happen. And in neuroscience, this is called the prediction model of the brain. And it's the most current that I'm aware of cognitive workspace model of how the brain works, is that the brain is a prediction model. So it's drawing from past experiences, which then are saying, okay, because of all this, I can say this is going to happen if I do this. And it's going to say, this is what's going to happen if I do this. And then this will happen. And then this will happen, And I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, where you're thinking about, okay, if I go to the store now, then I can get the milk and I can get the cookies, and then I can come home and I'll be home at exactly 7:30, and the baby needs to go to sleep at 8:30, and so I'll have 1 hour of sitting and enjoying the baby before I put the baby to sleep, and then I can eat the milk and cookies, right? But the problem is that sometimes unpredictable things happen. And these create what they call prediction errors. This is what neuroscientists call prediction errors. And so a prediction error is when you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to get the milk and cookies and blah, 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 right? But it's Sunday. You forgot it was Sunday. Store closes at 6 p.m. on Sunday. So you drive to the store, you're all excited to get the milk and cookies, and oops, error. And what this does is this creates this whole new chain of events that was unpredictable, and you have to go off in a whole different direction, maybe go to a different store, maybe go without the milk and cookies, whatever, right? But this prediction error creates a new chain of events, which then these all get stored back in this. So these ones all become past experiences, then memories, right, which inform future predictions. So why am I talking about this, and why does this matter for marketing? Well, for marketing, your goal as a marketer is to create prediction errors. So here's someone, and they are your ideal client, right? And so I'm just going to draw this little money sign on them right there. Yeah, because they're the person that you want them to buy your stuff, right? You want them to like your business. You want them to like your brand, man. And so they're going along in this direction, right? And, they have their solution. And they have their solution to whatever the problem is that they're solving, right? And it's working or it's not working. Maybe they don't have a solution, maybe they're very early stage of sophistication, and they know they have a problem. They're highly problem aware, but they do not know of any solution. So in that case, it's real easy. They're just going along with this prediction that I have this problem. I would like to be over here, but nothing can solve it, right? So at that point, your job is really easy. It's just to say, actually, you can go this direction and get this result. You don't have to end up here, right? So that's persuasion right there. That is the simplest type of persuasion. Is someone has a problem, they don't know how to solve it, and you just say, hey, here's a solution. And they're like, oh, wow, cool. I didn't know anyone ever fixed that. That's great. Awesome. Yeah, let me sign up. But it gets more complicated, right? It gets more complicated because most of the things that we are trying to, persuade people on, they've already seen like a million different promises of like, this is going to fix it. And, this is going to fix it right here. And this is going to fix it right there. And this is going to fix it. And all these things that they were promised were going to fix it failed, was a scam, didn't work, broke after a month, right? And so maybe you have a great solution here. You got something that can actually solve their problems, but their prediction of your thing, going back to this, they've got all these negative past experiences stored here of all the failures that they tried in the past. And so their prediction is that your thing is going to fail too. It's going to fail right here. And it's not going to actually get them to the promised land over here, which is, whatever they want, which is, let's just put a big smiley face right there. It's happy person, happy solution, right? And so their prediction model is like skeptical. And this is what we mean when we talk about like highly sophisticated markets, because they've seen a lot of previous promises presented possibly quite persuasively, but ultimately problematic because they didn't deliver on what they promised they would deliver on. So that's what's happening when you are persuading, is you need to present this in a way that it doesn't look like that, it doesn't look like that, it doesn't look like that, it doesn't look like that. It looks like this because it is. It's something new. It's something different, Unique mechanism, unique problem framing. You can redefine the problem in their mind. You can redefine the way that they actually think about the thing that they're experiencing in the world and give them a new way to think about it, and then share exactly why your product is the solution that will work. And here's the proof of why it will work. And on top of that, we're so confident that if you trust us and you give us a chance, then we'll give you a full year to decide if it actually works. And if not, you can have your money back. Right? That is the essence of persuasion right there. Now, here's why AI fails at that. It's quite comical because AI is optimized to do this. It's optimized to look at a token, right? I'm just going to label this token. Oops. This is draw. There we go. I'm going to label this token, right? And it says, okay, this is the token. Right here is the next most predictable token. Okay? And then it does that. And let me just add another little thing on it right there. Okay. So here's what it's doing, right? This is the most predictable next token. This is the most predictable next token. This is the most predictable next token. That's literally how the system works. And it's the unpredictable tokens have been trained out by this whole process up here with the random homies given their feedback on it so that it becomes more predictable. It becomes more structured in a way that feels off, that doesn't land with people, because what people are actually looking for is this. They're looking for a productive surprise, something that presents new, true, relevant, and useful information in a way that it doesn't look like all the failed solutions that they tried before, that they can actually see that there's a way out of the problem that they're experiencing and to get to the point where they want to be. And so AI is optimized to do the very thing that the brain is built to ignore over time. And maybe sometimes it doesn't, maybe sometimes it works. Maybe for your specific market it works. Maybe your offer is just really easy, you're just offering a discount or whatever. Or maybe you just you have such a great product that no matter how you present it, it's just going to be successful. You're just going to get people buying it because you're the only person in the world who's ever solved this specific problem for this specific person. And your price is just so great that everyone can't help but say yes, But for most of us, that's not it. We're living in a shark-infested waters here, We're in a place where people are burned, they are skeptical, they've been sold to so many times, they've been lied to, they've been tricked, they've been just bought things off Temu, and it's like you order a sweater and it comes in and it's just a bunch of yarn that's in a little ball and you're like, the heck is this? I'm never buying off Temu again. So then the next deal site that comes along, they're like, this looks like Temu. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go for it. And so that's the lay of the land here. So this is why AI marketing is getting worse and worse, though. It's because people are just trying to fix the structural, architectural problems when the very system itself is optimized to do this. Now, I have done a lot of thinking about this, and I've done a lot of research on this, okay? Into not just marketing, but the neuroscience of it, like how brains actually work, and then the actual architecture of LLMs and how they actually work. And there is a solution, but it's not something that's obvious. It's not something that's easy. It's not something that you can just do in a weekend. It's not something a prompt can fix, okay? Maybe a prompt fixes it for a little while, but a prompt isn't going to bring it home for you. And here's the solution, okay? So the first thing is, I'm going to label this one AI, okay? Now, what you need to structure for AI is a few things. First off, you need to give it the right data set to look at. You need to give it something that matters. And there's a few parts of what is in the data set that it looks at. The first thing is, what is your competitors doing? Okay. So I'm going to label this one C for competitors. Oh, let's make it a capital C. All right. And this is really important because this gives a baseline on the market. It's like, who is saying what and why and how well is it working? The next thing that you want to look at is, what are people complaining about? complaining about? What are they saying is missing from the solutions that these guys are offering? And what this creates here for you is your white space. You know, there's a gap between what they're offering and what people are complaining about. And right in there, in this little space in here, that's your sweet spot, okay? So that's your white space right there. And you want to go deeper, though. You want to go even deeper than that. You want to get into what are they complaining about, and who are they? You know, like, who are these people actually? Like, what does their life look like? So that you know who you're talking to, so that you know how to connect with them in a way that makes sense. You don't talk to a lawyer the same way you talk to a gangster, you know? I mean, maybe you do. If you're talking to Saul Goodman, maybe you've, you know, yeah, what's up, bro? But ultimately, you want to talk to people in the language that's familiar in their world, while also being enough of a pattern interrupt that they get curious. And curiosity is what happens. Curiosity is the result of a prediction error occurring. When a prediction error occurs, it's like, oh, wait, why did that happen instead of what I expected? Maybe this is worth paying attention to. And the brain hands out attention based off of what it perceives as being actually useful. New, true, relevant, and surprising information is what updates the prediction model moving forward, okay? So you want to give your AI this data set, and you also want to give it your brand specific information. So like who you are, I'm going to make that one a triangle for some reason. Who you are, right? And so it needs to have a brand voice. It needs to understand your brand voice. And then it also needs to have a source of ideas, new ideas right here, okay? And then it also needs to have feedback. And you know, honestly, this could be laid out much more elegantly and in a better flowchart of like what actually makes sense, but whatever. You guys get the picture. You get what I'm putting down here. You better. If you don't, then bye. If you can't keep up, then this isn't for you. And so yeah, so this is the data set that you want to give it, right? And the trick here is not to just give it all of this data, because it's not going to know what's important. If you just paste all this all in at once, you know, what people are complaining about, this, that, it's gonna see it all as one big long stream, and it's not gonna know, like, okay, wait, this is separate from that. It's just gonna be one big muddled thing, which it'll, you know, they're pretty good at making sense out of stuff. Like, you can paste in, you can data dump a lot of information, and the LLMs are able to parse through it pretty well. But the recall, the context management gets a lot worse as you do that, because every single message then, it contains this entire huge long stream. So what this data needs to happen to this is this needs to get broken down into structured data. So this is connected to this, is connected to this, is connected to this, etc., you know? And so it's like, where do the new ideas come from? Well, they can come from what people are complaining about, right? They can come from what your competitors are offering. They can come from feedback on how the actual assets are working. They can come from a slice of life. They can come from a unique story about who you are and how your business was created and why it matters. And you notice how this is all pointing at new ideas here, because new ideas are like the most important thing. New ideas are what's actually going to create a message that's actually going to break through the noise and connect with someone on a level that they like you, trust you, believe you enough to actually take action on giving your product or service or whatever the heck you're selling a shot. So new ideas are what you're going for, okay? And these new ideas then need to get fed into some type of system. And this is where most people start, right? This is where most people go right away. They go into a system. And this is where like prompts come in, right? So prompts, what is it? Prompts, examples, and tools. Okay. So the prompts are when you say, do you know what a prompt is? I don't need to explain what a freaking prompt is to you. Prompt is what you tell it to do, right? How you tell it to be, how you tell it to act. And because these are pattern matching things, then a lot of people will make mistakes where they give it an abstract prompt. They're like, you are a direct response copywriter who has years of experience in marketing, and your job is to come up with the very best campaign that we can possibly launch for our client, which will deliver a windfall of profit immediately. Unheard of ROAS, click-through rates through the roof. And it's like, okay, great. So what actually happens when you feed it that information is it pattern matches to your freaking prompt. It pattern matches to what you tell it to do. You're far better off finding some examples, which is this part right here, examples, and giving it examples and saying, hey, create an ad like this. Hey, here's a famous ad from someone. Create an ad like this. And it's going to be able to pattern match to that, especially if you find, unique, coherent ads that actually have verifiable matching patterns and techniques through them. And then you give those as examples, then that's what's gonna be able to pattern match onto those and lock onto those. So that's a little freebie for you right here. Stop thinking so much about the freaking prompts and give it better examples to pattern match onto. The next thing is tools. So tools, most generic AIs are just completely missing tools, right? Because they write something and then they don't know if it's good. So maybe, you open up Claude and ChatGPT on two sides of the screen and paste one thing over the other and say, is this good? Oh, here's his feedback on it. Oh, here's his feedback on it. And you like, yes, I have solved this problem. But none of them are actually like using a structured specific tool to analyze it. They're just going based off of vibes, which again, vibes, as we've really discussed, comes back to analyzing it based off of whatever other ads have been created, and some abstracted generalized techniques and principles that the model thinks is important. So the system, so here's the AI, and I'm going to connect the AI to the system, right? And then I'm going to draw in between these two. Bloop, 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 bloop. The system needs to feed the data set. The data set needs to feed the system. What's actually working needs to get referenced when it's actually writing. And then what is it writing needs to go into a data set somewhere to be stored. And then the final thing that you really need here is, and it's kind of covered in feedback, but it's right here. I'm going to put it over here just for fun, just because it's going to make my life hard. And this is results tracking, and systematized, okay? Results tracking systematized. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to allow, when the system writes something, it goes into this. The results tracking systematized goes into the feedback, which goes into the data set, which goes into the writing system, and it becomes a closed loop where it learns from itself. Now, the thing about results tracking is you can't just have it, like, oh, okay, add, like, let's say you launch 3 ads, right? And here's ad 1, here's ad 2, here's ad 3. Okay, ad 1 does really well. Ad 2 does okay. And ad 3 sucks, right? Now, you tell this, okay, you just say like, all right, this ad was good. This ad was mediocre. This ad was bad. And then you're just leaving the agent up to kind of guess as to why this was happening. And the problem with that is it's not structured data. And we're going to come back again to structured data again and again and again. Okay, so after you have structured data, this needs to be structured into a way. And I'm going to show you how we solved this for Coppica in a minute here, which, yeah, Coppica is the name of the business that I'm building. But before I show you how it's solved, I'm just going to talk about why it's so necessary. Because without having it structured in a way that that it's readable, that it's dissected properly, then it's not going to know what's important, because again, let's look at these ads, right? Let's zoom in on them. And this ad here is made up of this and this and this and this, and this ad is made up of this and this and this and this. And this ad is made up of this and this and this and this. And these are all specific little, linguistic techniques that are being used inside of the ad to make it what it is, right? And so with structure, you can see that this one and this one are the same, but this one doesn't have that, and that this one shares, this one has this, and this one has this, and this one has this as well. So that's just, baseline. It's like all of them have it, right? And the question really becomes like, what is it that made this one work and this one do okay and this one just totally flop, right? And so you have to have a way to process these ads down into individual little pieces, individual little granular bits. And those bits then allow the system and the machine to actually feed this process of coming up with new ideas based off of results that worked, combined with other things about, this is what someone's complaining about. This is a slice of their life. This is what competitors are offering. This is the feedback. And that keeps the brand voice consistent, right? It keeps it consistent if it knows what's working, if it knows what's actually driving results, if it knows what patterns are showing up, then it keeps it consistent, but it allows iteration within that. And this is how actual brands evolve their voices, So, yeah, this is the set of issues that we're dealing with here. And this is why AI copy seems to just be getting worse, and marketers are just getting more and more frustrated and abandoning it and running away and going back to, writing things by hand. Because if you type your business and then a competitor's business into Claude or ChatGPT and say, write me an ad, it's going to write you the same ad. Even if you try to give it more information, it's not going to know what's important. And most crucially of all, it's not going to know what works. And it's not going to learn from itself in a way that it actually makes sense. So to solve this, here's what we've done. We went through around 20-something thousand ads from 1,800 businesses, 1,800 different brands, going all the way back to 1910. And we dissected these brands down to their individual persuasive techniques. So, everyone knows pattern interrupt, everyone knows guarantee, everyone knows, offering specificity in numbers instead of just saying a general number, right? But the techniques are so much more granular than that. And there's different types of identification that constitute a brand voice. And so what we did is we processed these ads. We processed, landing pages, video scripts, actual old print ads, actual old radio ads, infomercials, TV commercials, fundraising materials. We processed all of the as much persuasive material as we could find. And we looked at what are the actual specific little techniques that are being used within this. And what we found is a data set that is 1,500, I think it's right now it's at 1,585 different unique techniques that are used across advertising, persuasive writing, and sales, stretching back to 1910. 1910, I think, is the earliest year that we found. But if we could find older material, I'm sure that these would show up in them. I just haven't looked at, ads from the 1800s, because I don't think advertising was even that big of a thing back then. But yeah, it'd be fun to look into that too. So we found these 1,500 different techniques. Now, these were not just created, it's not just something that I came up with. They're actually extracted from individual ads, and they go back a long time. So we're able to see the same thing show up in something from 1920, and the same thing shows up in 2020 in two completely different industries. And so this is what one of those looks like. Here's a technique called the scandal reveal, okay? And it reveals a concrete hidden wrongdoing or suppressed fact so the reader feels they've stumbled onto something powerful interests want buried. This is what the technique does. And here's some examples of it. This one right here is from 2008. Okay? Here's an example from 1995. Here's another example from 2008. Here's an example from 2026. Another 2026 and another 2026. That wasn't a great example. Let me find an example that reaches back further. Curiosity gap. Let's see what we've got here. Here we go. 1965. Okay. Why models stay young till 60. That's an example of the curiosity gap technique. 1922. This book came between two men and separated them forever. That's an ad from 1922. Here's an ad from the 1980s. The tires that come with your new car will probably be the wrong size. Again, this is a persuasive technique to create a curiosity gap that opens up a question in someone's mind. It's a pattern interrupt. It creates a prediction error of, like, usually when you see someone claiming something, they state what it is. Leaving it out creates a gap, and you want to fill that in. Here's an example from 2015. So we took all this information, we took all of this data, we created an internal taxonomy of persuasive techniques. There's, like I said, there's about 1,585 different techniques in there right now. And this taxonomy page this whole thing is going to be public very soon here, including like an essay on neuroscience that is explaining this all, as well as the 18 theses. And you're going to be able to browse this and peruse the different techniques available and what roles they fill. We discovered there's 9 roles that copy fills, and that all of them are essential, and that all techniques can be lumped into one of these. And we discovered the underlying principle that is truth, and yeah, this is really it right here. Is persuasion is not a sequence of techniques. It's the progressive alignment of 9 dimensions of truth in a single reader's experience. And a new decision happens at the moment of convergence when all 9 become simultaneously true. That has to do with how the brain works, prediction models, looking for things that are true, because the brain has an immune system because it's made decisions before based off of things that weren't true. And so these 9 questions have evolved to safeguard the brain from updating its prediction model based off of stuff that's just not true. So all of this gets fed into database tables, gets fed into a system that actually uses it in a way that makes sense to the models and to the users, hopefully. So I'm going to show you right now what I'm doing. This is Coppica. So inside of Coppica, it looks like a regular AI chat writing thing, right? You got your chat box here, you got your whatever else is going on, but there's a lot more going on under the hood. So the first thing Coppica does is it starts with strategic foundations. It does research. It goes and it creates structured documents around what everyone else in the industry who's in your same industry is saying. And then it finds the empty lane. So like this is the empty lane for Coppica right here, which if you'll notice, This is exactly what I'm talking about here. Automated research strategies, strategy-informed writing, persistent memory, and compounding persuasion intelligence. Do you notice how I just told you all these problems with AI? And now I'm in here, and this is what the system noticed as the empty lane. You get it? You see what's happening here? So this product is in a world all of its own. No one else is approaching it in this way. And the reason why is because no one else is as much of a freaking nerd around persuasion as I am. Specifically persuasion, not just marketing, but persuasion itself, because politics is persuasion, philosophy is persuasion. That argument you had with your significant other 3 weeks ago over the dishes is persuasion. It's all persuasion. Marketing is just the way that we actually make money by using this this beautiful ancient science and practice and magical art of persuasion. So, Coppica starts with strategic foundations, competitive intelligence, then a persuasion map, which creates actual avatars and voices of their life, and does research, goes into Reddit forums, all sorts of places, finds actual quotes from their world, takes that, turns it into structured data. Breakthrough finder, analysis of where the market is at, what level of awareness, what level of sophistication, what's played out, what messaging is actually going to break through. White Stag, this one comes up with super fun viral ideas, things that are actually genuinely remarkable, genuinely will set your business apart, make it something that you don't have to keep selling because your customers will sell it because you actually built something that's worthy of being talked about, not just noise in the market. Paragon, this one looks for JVs, affiliates, partnerships, different offer stacks, bundles, ideas, ways that you can maximize the value that you bring to clients by presenting and offering in a new way. Offer Architect takes it all, bundles it up into specific offers, and then Brand Voice codifies everything that is in your brand into an actual voice. So this is where it starts, and each one of these is incredibly dense, and it took a lot of work to figure these out, how they process data, how they find it, and then turning it into data that the system can actually use. So then the next thing that it does is it creates avatars for you. You can turn these on and off, you can edit them, like what the products or services, what their actual specific objections are, their buying triggers, the summary, etc. You can store your offers in here, so you can, again, turn these on and off. If you just want to write for a specific offer, then you can turn it on, and that's the offer that every writing chat will write about. You can store your stories in here. Again, it's structured data. You can send a link out and get a link that creates a chat for people where they go through this process of answering questions from this little chat bot here, and then it stores that story as, once again, structured data within the system that it knows how to use, so it knows how to find the things that matter. And then there's this ideas board right here, and this is where you should spend most of your time, is coming up with ideas and coming up with different ideas of different campaigns you can launch. And when you're ready, then you can just develop it. You can just one click, bam, take an idea, and it starts out knowing everything about your business. It knows all that strategic context, and it knows everything that you just saved in this idea, and you develop it. And so, like, this is my example of a chat with our main strategist bot, Mimir, okay? And Mimir is, he's going to use some tools here. So right here, every time you see an amber text, he's pulling a tool. So he has 32 different tools available that he can use to read strategy docs, to look at winning patterns, to analyze ideas, to search on the web, to look at specific little points of data, to evaluate the flow of something. There's tools available. So it's not just a generic writing chat in that way, because it actually has, it's like if you think about how a human copywriter works, they sit, right, and they've got this book of rhetorical devices, and they've got a book on swipe file, and and they have their swipe file on their computer, and they're going to go, like, read Dan Kennedy or read Gary Halbert or, go study something, or they're going to go back to a course from Alex Hormozy that they bought a couple years ago, and they're going to watch a specific video and be like, okay, yeah, right, okay, this is the idea I want to go with. And then they're going to look at a swipe file. They're going to do some research on competition. The system is just doing that. And the idea is to introduce unpredictability into the next token, so that the model actually surprises itself. Because that's the key here to getting AI to do something unpredictable, is the model has to surprise itself. It has to be given a token in a way that it doesn't expect it. And so that means introducing noise and ambient context on the back end. So here it is, this is like what's going on is this guy is evaluating this campaign that I had an idea for. And, let's say it does something I really like, right? Okay. It's like, okay. So it's aware of my current campaign, the current thing that I'm launching. And so it's actually telling me like, hey, you might not want to do this because you're in the middle of something else. And that's true. I don't want to actually launch this right now. So let's say it does something I really like, right? Then what I can do is just highlight it, click save to memory, save the thing right here, say like, this is really good. Do more of this. And that's going to be fed to every single writing chat in the future, so that it can actually learn from my feedback over time and figure out what I like to hear. So once you've worked with a bot, you've created something you like, and so that's one bot. There's 30 in the system, all of them have different examples, all of them have different prompts, all of them are designed for different things. Like Jester is a comedy ad specialist, the Profiler is a deep psychological research, the Ringmaster is for launch copy. Sales page architect drafts sales pages in a very structured, systematic way, so it doesn't just one-shot the whole thing. Comes up with the core idea, the proof points, etc. It lays it out. Mechanism Forge, really cool way to create unique mechanisms for your business, coming up with 20 to 25 names that coin something that you can own, some neolinguistic term that you actually own. Hook Lab, hook ideas, advertorials, copy autopsy. You can post something in, tears it down, tells you why it didn't work. Gatling comes up with bullet points. Uncle Chad is just freaking fun. So you use these bots, right? The bots, right. And then you convert things to drafts. They get stored right here in the system, so they're not anywhere else. If you're working with someone else, you can send it for review right in here. And so like here's that's a bad example. That was a weird one. So here's an example of this is from Mechanism Forge, right? And I can see that right there. I can click, and it takes me back to the chat where the actual draft was generated. So I never lose chats. I never lose drafts. They're all stored here in one place. And then when I'm ready to launch something, I finalize it. And then when it's finalized, then you see here it says deploy, okay? So let's just pick something random and do a deployment on it. Here we go, the crime scene. All right, so this is an old ad from March 27th from an Uncle Chad chat. And it's for someone, it's a Facebook, Instagram ad for someone who knows the problem. So I'm going to click deploy here, meta ads. I'm going to paste in just coppica.com, and I'm going to go deploy. Now, you see how it just gives me a link right there? UTM source Coppica. Now, if I copy that and I go over to Facebook Ads Manager and I put that in as the link source or wherever I'm running ads or driving traffic from, then the system's going to know that this actual copy with the specific techniques in it. Oh, going back to this, the specific techniques that were used inside of the ad get tracked. So if this ad used absurdist escalation, then that tracking is already built into the back end. So when I finalize this and launch it, then the system knows how many conversions come in based off of that ad and that specific technique in it. So if you launch 20 different ads. There's going to be some core techniques that are going to show up in all of them. And over time, the system's going to build a corpus. It's going to build a life. It's going to build an intelligence around what's actually working, because it's connected to your Facebook. It's connected to your Stripe. It's connected to your Go High Level. It's connected to your HubSpot. It's connected to these things. And then that data feeds back into the system, and it builds out your root network. So you see I'm at root level 2 here. So that means there's 935 elements right now in the system that it knows are in here as structured data that all writing bots then tool call and get and pull to work with for creating new content. The best way to show this to you is just to show you what it actually looks like on the back end. So let's look up Psych First here. Psychology First Marketing is a wonderful marketing company that I work with very deeply and have helped co-develop this quite a bit. And so it's actually been connected to their ads for a while, or I guess I should say our ads. And so here's where it's at. There's 5,000 elements, average confidence of 92%. And this is what's actually working, okay? 1.4x weight on this with 88% confidence. And this is the actual little slice of copy that it pulled out of those ads. Source meta backfill. So this came from an ad from a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever. And then it's tied to the conversions based off of the tracking data, deduped across sources. So it knows, what Facebook reported, what Stripe reported, what Cortana, what Hyros reported, what Go High Level reported, dedupes all that on the back end, creates many sources of truth, one narrative around what techniques are actually working within your market. And this is what enables it to stay on brand, to stay on voice, and to learn what works over time, and to find things that are actually effective and actually work. So, is it a magic bullet? No. Will it help you get a lot better ideas very quickly? And if you iterate on those and launch things, then will it feed its own system in this closed feedback loop, coming back to itself and building out your root network so that every time you write, you're not starting from a fresh seed, you're starting from a tree that's already grown deep roots? Yes, that's what Coppica is designed to do. And the way that I built it, it's designed to solve a lot of those fundamental architectural issues that LLMs have, and the things that cause them to create the same, the sea of sameness, the predictability. There's other things it can do too, like you can tell a bot to go in and look in its swipe file, and it'll go into this list of 20,000 different ads and pull out 10 to 15 different examples of ads. It has a vector search, so it can find things that are keyed for your specific asset that you're trying to create right now. And it'll come up with new ideas based off that. So it could pull like an ice cream shop ad from 1956, and it could pull a financial ad from Agora Publishing from 2001, and it could pull a, different piece of copy from someone else from 2026, from a ClickBank thing. And then it's like, okay, how do we adapt these? So it introduces a sense of ambient context, ambient noise, unpredictability, which solves the biggest problem, which is that AI copy, if you don't have something to combat it, it's going to be fucking boring. It's going to be boring. It's going to be generic. It's going to look good, feel polished. It's going to look like it should work. But if you launch it, you'll see the results. And even if it does well, you won't know why. You won't know why that ad did well and the other one didn't. You need structured data on the back end. And the beautiful thing about Coppica, the way it's created, is it gets deeper over time. The roots go deeper. You can grow deeper with this system. And the more that it learns, the more that it earns. It gets better and better at marketing your business the more you use it, based off of what you say you like, based off of what actually drives results, based off of actual real structured data. And is it perfect? No. Does it still do some stupid AI stuff sometime that's, excuse me, it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that. Yeah, of course it does. It's not perfect, But is it a lot better than what you're using right now? Guaranteed. I guarantee it. You know what? And I'm willing to put my freaking money where my mouth is on it too. So here's the part of the video where I'm just going to make you an offer. I'm going to tell you exactly what I want right now. Okay? I want you to test this. I want you to try it out. If you're running paid ads, if you have a business that's actually driving revenue, I want you to test Coppica out. It's very expensive for me to run the API on the back end, so I cannot give you a free trial for it. I don't have funding. I'm bootstrapping this. I'm building it myself in my little shed with my laser cut art behind me here. Yeah, I made this, by the way. This is the other thing that I do. I like making art. But yeah, I want you to test it out. I want to give you 45 days before you even have to decide if it's good or bad. You know, see some results, launch some campaigns, and see what happens. For those 45 days, you can load up 3 businesses in it. So if you are an agency who works with clients, you can load up 3 of your clients and test this on them. If you are a solopreneur and you just have 1 business, that's fine. Same amount. It's $200, 45 days. Try it out. If at the end of those 45 days, if you haven't gotten some good results, then I'll give you your $200 back. If you have gotten good results at the end of those 45 days, then we can talk about what it would look like to actually use Coppica for your business on an ongoing basis. And there's a few different options there, but that's it. I've really done my best here to make a system that I feel solves many of the deep architectural issues with artificial intelligence and how it is optimizing in the different opposite direction of the way that the human brain wants to process information. And I really want to get some success stories. I really want to have some people in here who get, you know, those breakthrough messages that allow you to increase your ROAS significantly, that allow you to re-engage and reconnect with old clients and customers. So if you sign up, you're not just going to get the system, you're also going to get me. Like, I'm going to be here for you. I'll help you get it integrated. I'll help you get your system set up. I'll give you feedback and guidance and advice and ideas on the ads that you're running. I'm going to work so that this works for you, so that you and your business do better, and that we can all grow deeper together. Because that's the goal here. It's not just, you know, it's not just one isolated tree. I want to build a forest with a mycelial network underneath where we're all feeding each other and we're all working together and we're all going to survive this great time of uncertainty where it seems like all the tools are, you know, smoke and mirrors. And I think we can get through it. I think we can do it. I think we can do a good job. And I think I've built a tool that's very helpful here. So if you'd like to try it out, just go ahead and comment on this video, and I'll post the link on where to join that trial. All right. This video is probably a lot longer than I intended it to be originally, but I had to say it, you know. I had to get this all out because this is really important stuff to understand, and I think a lot of good businesses right now are getting led astray by marketers and builders who maybe have good intentions but haven't done enough research into the, you know, cognitive models of the brain, as well as AI architecture, as well as marketing and persuasion and sales itself, to really solve the fundamental issues that that everyone keeps trying to solve with prompts. So, hope you enjoyed this. There's going to be more coming soon. Stay tuned.